reminded to silence your cell phones during the ceremony. Thank you. Distinguished guests, family, friends, shipmates, welcome to the retirement ceremony of Senior Chief Electronics Technician Submarines, Coleman Racey. My name is Trev Lawrence, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies. Today we will honor and witness the military closure to a portion of Senior Chief Racey's life that has been gratifying and a rewarding career of naval service. The retirement ceremony is the nation's expression of appreciation for a job well done, a sincere, official recognition of a long period of faithful and honorable service. We also have his family for their support and dedication. They have dealt with a multitude of challenges during their naval journey. We gratefully honor the family's courage and support, offering our best as they begin a new life. The ceremony you're about to see is a time-honored tradition of naval service. The ceremony itself has changed over the years as the Navy has evolved from a predominantly seagoing command to both sea and shore-based commands. Tradition has it that the commanding officer will say a few words about our shipmate. Fellow shipmates would then provide gifts. Our shipmate would have an opportunity to make their own closing comments. Following these comments, the retiree will request permission to go ashore and then would be piped ashore for the last time, thus closing 25 years of distinguished and honorable service to the United States Navy. Please feel free to take pictures at any time during the ceremony, asking that you only refrain from doing so during our national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the colors, our national anthem, and remain standing for the invocation. Color guard, parade the colors.
Color guard, attention, carry, colors. Mark time, march. Forward, march. Mark time, march. Color guard, halt. Left, face.
Ladies and gentlemen, our national anthem. Color guard, retire the colors.
Right, face. Mark time, march. Forward, march. Color guard, halt.
C.J. Young will now deliver our invocation.
Please join me in prayer. Father God, we invoke your divine assistance upon all present here today as we celebrate the retirement of Coleman Racey. With humble awareness of our great need, we look always to you, O Lord, that everything we do may begin with your help, continue with your gracious assistance, and in you come to a holy end. Send your divine blessing upon all our military men and women, especially those deployed at this moment in harm's way. Let all our words and actions this day and every day be for your greater glory, you who live and reign with the Son and the Holy Spirit, one God forever and ever. Amen.
Will the guests please be seated? Today it is my pleasure to introduce guest speaker, Captain Retired Charles Melker, United States Navy. Captain Melker attended the Naval Academy from Lexington, Massachusetts. He graduated in 1984 with a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering. He completed Navy nuclear power and submarine training in March of 1986 and earned his MBA from Johns Hopkins University. His previous submarine tours include the USS Providence, the USS Omaha as the engineer, and the USS Boise as the executive officer. He deployed 8 times through all the world's oceans, earning 6 battle efficiency awards, steaming enough miles to circumnavigate the globe 12 times. Captain Melker commanded the USS Scranton from 2001 to 2004, earning the Scranton back-to-back battle E's, 4 engineering E's, and received the Submarine Force nomination for the Fleet Battenberg Cup. The Scranton earned multiple unit commendations and completed the only on-time, under-budget overhaul at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, thus living up to the ship's motto of on time, on track, and on target. His short tours included the Virginia-class submarine program office, Navy nuclear officer, community manager, deputy commander, submarine squadron 6, deputy EA to the commander's submarine force, and the executive director of the Joint National Training Program. His final tour as the commanding officer was the Naval Support Activity, Hamptons Road, the East Coast's second largest naval facility. In addition to his submarine duties, he was a certified Navy diver and held specialties in financial management, federal acquisitions, and naval engineering. His personal awards include the Defense Superior Service Medal and Legion of Merit. Since retiring from naval service, he worked for Viola, I pronounced that correctly, the largest resource management and environmental company in the world. He is currently the CEO of the company's Nuclear Solutions, global leader in nuclear waste handling, addressing legacy sites across the planet. Captain Melker and his wife, Commander Tracy Melker, live in Chicago after completing military careers that include being the first husband and wife couple who simultaneously commanded operational commands, submarines and helicopters. They have 4 children, Jack, Andrew, Grace, and Charlotte. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce today's guest speaker, Captain Charles Chuck Melker, retired United States Navy.
I did panic. It would not have been beyond Coleman to hide this at the last moment and let me wing it. Good morning. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy lives to join us here today. I would like to welcome Master Chief Lawrence, Chief Petty Officers, members of Devron 5, Coleman's friends and shipmates, and former Scranton shipmates. I would especially like to welcome Coleman's family and particularly acknowledge the generations of military service from grandfathers, uncles, parents, in-laws, and even sisters. His mother, Kathy, former Air Force, you've raised an impressive son who it's been my pleasure to know. He must be very proud of his years of service. Coleman's father, Coleman Sr., also Air Force, was stranded in New Jersey this morning and unable to make it today. Coleman's sisters, Tina and Teresa, thank you both for your family's extensive Army service. But can you blame Coleman at the end of the day for joining the real military? Coleman's in-laws, Mike and Brenda Scow, and brother-in-law, Bo. Brenda, for heaven's sake, could you find a better son-in-law? Having 2 daughters myself, I can only imagine that you thank the Lord every day when you wake up and think of the Navy man in your daughter's life. Most importantly, I'd like to welcome Aubrey and the gang. Mackenzie, Cameron, Caden, Cortland, Parker, and Ainsley. And Parker and Ainsley, you two should know that my teenage sons did not put their hands over their hearts at my change of command. So well done. I was the last of 5 boys, and if I did something wrong, my parents usually had to run through the entire list of names, including the dog's name, before they got to me. I'm not sure how you keep it all straight, let alone homeschool the entire clan. It is clearly working, though, as Mackenzie has already wrapped up her first year of college at 17. I didn't even graduate from high school at 17. Aubrey, you should know that when I asked Coleman about the greatest moment in his career, he said it was marrying you. My name is Charles Milker, a former shipmate of Coleman's. It is a distinct pleasure for me to be here today as Coleman concludes a career of serving his country. This morning we pay tribute to a senior chief, a shipmate, a friend, a husband, and a son who's closing out a challenging and rewarding career of 25 years that requires special dedication to the greatest submarine force and greatest Navy in the world. Coleman, there's no greater pleasure than watching shipmates succeed. It is these events that keep those Navy ties alive. I encourage you to think of your career not as over, but rather as something that has been entrusted to you and is now ready to pass along. The tangible accolades that you earned will provide some satisfaction, but their importance will fade. What will remain is the memory of how you managed to do what was needed with poise and skill. The impact on the lives of your sailors will reward you for many years to come, and that will be worth more than all the awards combined. It is difficult to summarize events in any person's career, but even more so for a submariner. The life of a sailor cannot be characterized by ships, home ports, or ports of call. It's much more. It is best described by a set of experiences with shipmates and family over decades. In 25 years, Coleman has had no shortage of these. 8 deployments, 7 moves, 6 children, 5 home ports, 5 submarines, 4 home ports, 3 shore tours, 2 shipyards, and of course, today's celebration. He understands the feeling of standing watch on a ship with a silent propulsion plant, a darkened control room, and a junior officer winding the ship to periscope depth on a moonless night. 2 of whom, Walls and Campbell, finished the PCO course just this past Monday, thanks in part to your mentoring. He appreciates the humor developed after months at sea in close quarters with 100 shipmates, most of whom you would not choose to live with, but who could make you laugh every day. He knows there's nothing that can take the place of being on liberty with shipmates in foreign ports, although Coleman had a unique habit of ditching them and walking off without telling them on liberty. He knows there is no one he grew up with that can beat his stories. He can describe the pride experience of getting a ship to sea in a nick of time, keeping her there for months on end without aid, and the emotion of forgetting it at the first sight of his family. After the inspections, the awards, promotions, professional successes fade from memory. It is these memories that will remain and will reward you for the service you've given. Coleman, well done. What you have achieved is a testament to both you and Aubrey. While there will be a sharp pang when you hear Senior Chief Navy, United States Navy departing, let me assure you this is not the end. It is only the end of the beginning. This will certainly be a highlight, but it will be one of many that you will have. You will find that all you learned in the Navy will carry you to success in whatever is next for your family. You should all know that there was nothing in particular in our lives that would indicate that Coleman and my path would ever cross. Yes, we both started off in nuke school. He was smarter than I was and immediately knew that was a bad idea. Both our first tours were in Groton, 10 years apart. We were both blue noses, shellbacks, and golden dragons, but that hardly made us family. Despite these similarities, there was no trajectory that would bring us together until we both received orders to Scranton. Me, my 4th fast attack submarine, and Coleman to his 4th fast attack submarine CO. He does not know this, but when I met Coleman, I had a Martin Gladwell moment. I hope some of you have read his books, otherwise this analogy is not going to work. In a blink, I knew that I would like Coleman both personally and professionally. He has that effect on people. For his part, Coleman was probably relying more on Gladwell's book, Outliers. Not sure if I was one of those COs who had gotten to command because I knew somebody, or worse, in spite of myself. I'm not sure we'll ever know the answer to that last question. However, our relationship was set on a dark night in January 2002, a month after my arrival. At 18:30, our ship headed to sea in the gathering dark from La Maddalena, Italy. Me on the bridge, Coleman in control room. Unfortunately, we were 3 hours late due to a QA bus, so things had already started to go really, really well. The good news was that the charts have been checked 3 times from waypoints to courses. Today, I understand you just press a button. But back when the Earth was still cooling, they were checked they were checked by hand, both because I was a green CO and because the outgoing CO had offered to fire the navigator. I unwisely declined because I would give him a chance. Rookie mistake. The passage from Santo Stefano to sea is a narrow 5-leg racetrack between the rocky coasts of Lake Isla Capara and Sardinia. It starts on a course of south, finishes on a course of north, and is no mean feat even in daylight. By 1900, under a dark Mediterranean winter sky with many navigation lights flashing all around us, in Italian of course, the ship glided past its first 45-degree turn in complete silence from the navigator and headed towards the rocky beach of Sardinia. On query, the navigator reported that the ship had actually passed the turn and he marked the turn late without any further elaboration. The squadron deputy who was by my side was very impressed with the demonstration and asked if I always missed turns. The irony of that question was that 12 months later, that deputy ran aground on this very track in broad daylight with a close friend of mine, ending both their careers. At 1950, the ship approached its second 45-degree turn, affectionately known as stick in the mud. Well, that's because exactly what it was. It was a stick in the mud. The Roman Navy had not passed down their global naval hegemony to the Italian nation. Characteristically, this Mark II ghosted past the ship's beam in the dark and was again met with complete silence from the navigator, and we again headed straight for the coast of Sardinia 300 yards ahead. Without Coleman knowing it, at that moment our paths converged at an acute angle over which he had no control. We were going to spend a lot of time together in the coming years, and Coleman, in characteristic style, dove in. There's a lot more to that story, but if your crew wonders why Coleman requires more chart reviews than normal, perhaps that will give you some insight. As it turned out, Coleman was the foundation of many of the successes the ship went on to have, even in the shipyard, which, if you know Coleman, had to be very distasteful for him, not the least of which was winning the navigation N in Baddeley while high and dry in the shipyard, something that hasn't been repeated since. I like to think his future successes were in part forged upon that anvil. In hindsight, though, it was clear that Coleman was one of those leaders that was going to succeed no matter what fate threw at him. At the very least, Coleman, our experiences have given us some great sea stories, including, of course, the mohawk you were given crossing the line, the silent 360s neatly executed without the officer of deck's knowledge, your midnight walk from Fort Lauderdale to Melbourne, Florida, and sleeping on a bench all night after escaping Palace in Kent, the motorcycle rides on the control room trash can with Palace under the noses of the Scranton JOs. One notable period was our month-long underway without the ability to make fresh water from our state-of-the-art reverse osmosis distilling equipment that made water instead the quality of an Egyptian sewer. The only shower was rigged in the engine room bilge with secondary reactor plant water. Phosphate is soap at the end of the day, but some visuals of your CO naked probably can't be unseen. I hope these experiences instilled a sense of innovation and openness to new ideas into your preparation for leadership and commitment to stay in touch with your sailors even in the worst of times. Apparently, though, you were able to double down on these lessons learned from that period more recently in the great poopocalypse of the Seawolf sea trials. At least in that case, you were able to take a shower when you were done. True leadership is a rare quality. The uninformed think that leadership is a natural trait. They could not be more wrong. Eloquence, mathematical ability, engineering prowess might all be natural qualities, and yet we all know people, though, that have these traits and continue to remind us every day that these traits alone are insufficient to promise success in leadership, and that being in charge and being a leader bear little resemblance to one another. Leadership is unique. Like athletic ability, there may be some underlying gifts, but to develop it takes long hours of work. The willingness to be confident in your decisions while risking failure, the willingness to correct bad decisions while recognizing your limitations, and most importantly, what you help teach me is to never believe that failure is a necessary outcome regardless of the circumstances. Defining leadership is challenging at best. In a strange way, it has one common trait with pornography. When describing pornography, Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart said, "Perhaps I could never succeed in intelligibly defining it, but I know it when I see it." So let's reflect on Coleman's impressive accomplishments. 20 personal awards that he can tell you about. 4 commendation medals, 4 NAMs, 8 good conducts, 2 national defense medals, 1 Global War on Terrorism medal, and 1 military outstanding volunteer medal. 12 military unit awards that he cannot tell you about. 1 presidential unit commendation, I don't have one of those. 1 Navy unit commendation, nope. 4 meritorious unit commendations, 1 joint meritorious unit commendation, 1 Coast Guard meritorious unit commendation, 1 Arctic Service Award, 1 Sea Service Award, and 2 battle efficiency ribbons. Lots of leaders can be decisive, pragmatic, and sensible, but few can do that with poise under stress. Perhaps the greatest praise comes from one of his recent shipmates. Quote, "Not only did he take time to mentor the Devron, but he made time for other squadrons as well, despite being shorthanded on his own staff. And he was directly responsible for the advancement of 10 sailors to Chief Petty Officer." It's a powerful thing to know when you are right and to act swiftly, when others cannot or will not. Every sailor has that one moment when he fails to act, and failing to act could result in injury or damage. Coleman and I had this opportunity together multiple times. In February 2004, the ship was operating in the New Providence Channel in the Bahamas. Cruise liners coming from Port Canaveral screamed through at night on the way to Providence Island so that none of the overpaying customers miss any of the overpriced drinks on the island the following morning. As the ship came to periscope depth in the pitch black, and as the scope broke the surface of the water, the engineer was staring at the close aboard bow of a well-lighted and oncoming cruise liner. He ordered emergency deep, but nothing happened. The ship sped up, but failed to dive, and languished in the way of the oncoming cruise ship that just missed us by yards, thanks to quick work by the control room team, as we learned that the diving system had failed. The good stories and the bad are what make our business different from all the others. When I received this invite, all the other experiences with Coleman came flooding back. Loss of all visibility and electronic nav aids at the Fort Monroe turn due to a freak electrical squall, a grueling overhaul, a red sounding at deep submergence on an uncharted seamount in the Tyrrhenian Basin, a whirlpool in the Straits of Messina that sank Odysseus and twisted our ship on a dime 45 degrees into the path of an oncoming ferry, conducting oars workup and PCO ops at the same time. Captain Steve will still not speak to me 15 years later. Unspecified events at an unnamed Roosevelt Roads club. And of course, who could forget almost running aground on Baltimore Shoals because my wife's helicopter hovered down to within 15 feet of our bridge, drowning out all communications just before we were to mark the turn. This was not helped by the fact that the ANAV was actually on the bridge with me for this final maneuvering watch on the ship. Ironically, it was our Sardinia experience that made this turn out all right. To be clear, this was a planned event, but was supposed to have happened an hour earlier, well out to sea. Who would be shocked to learn that aviators were late for a meeting? Coleman, some people see the world as they want it to be and complain it isn't so. Leaders see it as it could be and choose to act. When you enlisted, the Navy was not just a job, it was an adventure. Since then, you've had to let your journey begin, go full speed ahead, and finally accelerate your life. We've been a global force for good, and now we're America's Navy. All this time, the Marines have still been looking for a few good men. Clarence Darrow said that in order to ensure our own freedom, we must ensure the other man's liberty. Few can claim to be one of those that has answered the call to service, let alone the call to service in submarines. You have been one of the few that has chosen to answer the call. Now it's your time to turn over the watch. You've taught other crews and captains how to do what you have done so well. You could not make them learn, but you ensured they were not cheated of the opportunity. Any member of the armed forces who has served for even one tour is a patriot, and rightly so. For that person has done more for the country than those who have chosen to sit and watch history unfold. How then can we thank Coleman for his 25 years of service, and what does our nation owe a man who has dedicated his life to his country? 100 years ago, he would have been given a pocket watch and sent on his way. Today, he will be presented with a retirement award, a shadow box, and a lifetime of pay and benefits totaling over $750,000. Doubtless, more important is a secure nation, a submarine force well-trained, and shipmates prepared to stand the watch. You take with you the most valuable parting gift of all, the gratitude of shipmates, friends, and our nation. You have stood the watch. Coleman, you've worn your uniform with the tradition and pride befitting a senior chief petty officer of the United States Navy. I wish you as full a life in your next career as you've had serving your country. And on behalf of the Navy and a grateful nation, I thank you.
Thank you, Captain Milker. And let me be the first to say, Racey is not the only person that's glad you didn't tell those sea stories. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Will Senior Chief Racey and Captain Milker please step forward for the awarding of the citation? All military guests, attention to award. This is to certify that the Secretary of the Navy has awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal, Gold Star, in lieu of the 4th award to Senior Chief Electronics Technician, Navigation, Submarines, Coleman Cornell Racey II, United States Navy, for meritorious achievement while serving as the Assistant Navigator and Operations Department Leading Chief on the staff of Commander Submarine Development Squadron 5 from January 2016 to May 2019. Senior Chief Racey consistently performed his demanding duties in an exemplary and highly professional manner. Demonstrating superior leadership, he personally mentored over 100 sailors in all aspects of career development, resulting in the selection of 10 Chief Petty Officers. Providing direct support to 3 Seawolf-class submarines, he personally ensured the timely and successful qualification as ANAV for 5 personnel, a rate higher than any other squadron on the waterfront. He is routinely sought out for his vast training expertise, resulting in fleet-wide impact. In addition to supporting our submarines, he provided over 340 hours of dedicated training to Submarine Squadron 17 and Submarine Squadron 11 units, ensuring continued success for the United States Pacific Fleet submarines. Senior Chief Racey's outstanding performance has provided significant and long-lasting benefits to the submarine force and marks the culmination of a successful 25-year naval career. Given this 31st day of May, for the Secretary of the Navy, signed S.G. Mack, Captain, United States Navy, Commander, Submarine Development, Squadron 5. Guests may be seated. In addition to Senior Chief Racey's End of Tour Award, he has also received several letters of appreciation from President Bill Clinton to President George Bush and President Barack Obama, the Governor of the states of Washington and Virginia, and from the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy. Will the escorts please escort Senior Chief Racey's family on stage and join Captain Milker, please. Certificate of Appreciation for the United States Navy. To all those who shall see these presents, greetings.
Greetings.
This is to certify that the family of Senior Chief Racey has earned grateful appreciation for their selfless, faithful, and devoted service during his naval career. During their unfailing support and understanding, helped to make his career and long-lasting contribution to the nation possible. Given this 31st day of May, signed S.G. Mack, Captain, United States Navy, Commander, Submarine Development Squadron 5. All Chief Petty Officers, past and present, attention! Cover! Two. I will now read the Retirement Chief Petty Officer's Creed. You have on this day experienced that which comes to all of us who have served on active duty in our Navy. And I say our Navy because your departure from active duty in no way terminates your relationship. By law and tradition, U.S. Navy retirees are always on the rolls, ever ready to lend their service when the need arises. The respect that you have earned as the Chief was based on the same attributes that you will now carry into retirement. You should have, and no regrets, Do not view your retirement as an end of an era, but rather orders to a new and challenging assignment, to a form of independent duty. Remember well all that you have been and always will be, an accepted member of the most exclusive of all fraternities, that of the United States Chief Petty Officer. Active duty members salute you. Retired chiefs welcome you. I wish you the traditional fair winds and following seas. Chiefs, be seated. When a person retires from the Navy, it is tradition to present them with a shadow box. Contained within is a chronological listing of duty stations, ribbons, and awards. On behalf of many of your shipmates, including those who have made the supreme sacrifice, we wish to present you the sailor's most honored and cherished possession, the United States National Ensign, the flag which you have proudly served and so honorably defend, the flag which we honor and serve under is true emblem of our unity, our thoughts, our powers, our purpose as a nation. Accept it, protect it, guard it, and remember that the young men and women have trained, guided, inspired, will follow in your footsteps, and defend it with equal pride. We bid you fair winds and following seas, good luck, and Godspeed. Flag detail, attention. Flag detail, post. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony you are about to witness honors our nation's most cherished symbol of freedom, the Stars and Stripes. The flag will ceremoniously be passed from sailor to the next in honor guard formation. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher. My colors are a little truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshiped. I am saluted. I am respected. I am revered. I am loved, and I am feared. I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. At Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, Midway, Guadalcanal, Okinawa, Korea, Vietnam, the Tonkin Gulf, the Persian Gulf, Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and a score of other places long forgotten by all, but those who were there with me. I was there after the attack on September 11th. I quickly restood my ground on top of the rubble of the World Trade Center and reestablished my position draped over the smoking ruins of the Pentagon. I've led my troops. I follow them. I watch over them. They love me. I was on a small hill on Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired. My sailors, my soldiers, and Marines cheered me, and I was proud. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on in the streets of countries that I have helped set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible. I have been soiled, burned, torn, trampled on in the streets of my own country. And when it is by those with whom I have served in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the bounds of earth, and from my vantage point on the moon, I stand watch over the uncharted new frontiers of space. I have been a silent witness to all of America's finest hours. But my finest hour comes when I am torn into strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades in battle, or when I fly at half-mast to honor my soldiers, sailors, and Marines. But when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving mother at the graveside of a fallen son or daughter, I am proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave. Dear God, long may I wave. Flag detail. Post. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor, and I consider it an extreme pleasure and a privilege to introduce Senior Chief Coleman Racey, United States Navy.
Chuck, it's okay. I'm just going to use your speech. Thank you all for being here today. I can't say it enough how much everybody has kind of helped me along the way. You know, whether it was as a junior guy on my first boat or even at Devron in the last 3.5 years trying to learn what I was supposed to do there. It really means the world to me, and everybody that's here today with me, I consider friends and will consider friends for the rest of my life. When I started out my career in 1994, there were some people in here that weren't born. I'm sure there's a lot of them back in that corner over there. There you go. Like it. I really didn't plan on it being a 25-year thing. I started out and I thought between failing out of new school or making the right decision to not finish new school, I should say, and getting to my first boat, it was a really rough ride. You know, I was to the point where I was ready to be done in 5 years. And I was lucky enough to meet some really good chiefs that kind of said, hey, you know, what is it that's going on with you and how can we help you succeed? And they recognized that it wasn't that I was done, it was just that I wasn't fitting in right. So, you know, he talked to me and said, hey, where do you want to go? And I told him, I said, I'd really like to go to the USS Trepang. He said, give me an hour, I'll come back and talk to you. And I came back in there and he's like, it's done, you'll transfer in 2 weeks. Hope everything works out well. And Trepang was kind of like a turning point for me because of the fact that I had some really good friends there, and it kind of set me on the trajectory of the senior navigation and assistant navigator side. So I did 3.5 years on that boat, and it truly was, I mean, it was eye-opening for me. You know, one, you didn't have to deal with a lot of stuff because, you know, Trepang was an old 637. They went slow, and they just did their own thing. So we didn't pull into port with a battle group. We didn't do things with all the surface ships. We just were kind of like our own, you know, little nation, I guess. And you know, I was able to succeed there, bringing the boat all the way around. You know, did a Mediterranean deployment, did Eastern Pacific deployment, and then did a around-the-world decom cruise that just about burned the life out of that boat because I mean, I'm sure Travis can attest, they don't go very fast, and we had a very short time to get where we needed to go. And it was shortly after I got there, I was there for maybe 5.5 months, or in the shipyard for about 5.5 months when I took orders to come back to Groton, Connecticut and go to sea school. When I got there, you know, the school was great. It is what it is, it's short duty again. But I came up for my slate of orders, and initially, even though there was 2 people, including me in the class, that had, I think, like a 98 average in the whole course pipeline, basically the detailer came back and said, hey, everybody's going to Pearl or to Guam. And once again, you know, another chief that was in my class said, we're not taking those orders. you can go back to the drawing board and figure it out. We've got guys that have been busting their butt to not have orders to places they don't want to go. And so, they came back and said, well, where do you want to go? And I was a guy that wanted to go to Norfolk. And then there's one other guy that wanted to stay in Groton. I don't know why, but he did. And so that is literally how I ended up on the Scranton, is because that one chief said, we're not taking that crappy slate of orders. You better get something better. And Scranton was a fun boat, but I think the bar was raised when Chuck got there. I think the first time that I think it was shortly after your change of command where you rolled into the Christmas party with a duffel bag camouflage duffel bag, there you go, kind of looking like Army, and just started walking around and putting bottles of liquor on the table. I still don't know what you were thinking, but it worked out well for everybody who was there. I mean, we were all responsible, right? And that was the one thing I would say about that crew is we would, everybody planned for the worst case scenario. So we all had hotel rooms. Nobody was going anywhere. And obviously Chuck had gotten wind of that and decided to help us along the way. It was also there that Drew Palace, the guy that's in the back photo with the Mohawk, thought it was a really good idea to call Chuck's wife. Can I say it? I guess it's not inappropriate. No profanity. But he called her Comnav Kitchen. That didn't go over well for a commander in the Navy, even with drinks. So Drew was always kind of that guy, right? And as Chuck had mentioned, right, he and I both got Mohawks together. It was really cold on that Blue Nose ceremony, but we got our licks back afterwards when we did the shellback ceremony, and everybody else wasn't one. Riding motorcycles in control was definitely, you have to do something. Anybody that hasn't done it, you just don't understand how bored you get. And so we would try to liven it up however we could, and it was literally, sitting in control. And I was Drew's nap soup, and he was my quartermaster. And we would literally, he'd sit on a bench, and I'd sit right behind him and hold on tight, and we would act like we were riding motorcycles just for whatever entertainment we could find. Jonesy was there. He can attest to all of that. And Scranton was, the things that Chuck doesn't talk about, he talks about all the crazy things. He talks about that 45-degree turn, or when we were coming around, I can't remember between our Sardinia. No, not Sardinia. The Whirlpool.
Oh yeah, in the Straits of Messina.
Yes, in the Straits of Messina. And the fact that he was in the bridge, literally losing his mind because he thought we weren't turning. And this was like, when we started planning this thing out, this was a surge deployment after 9/11, right? And we didn't know what we were going to do when we got there. They said, hey, enjoy your stand down, but you're going to go back out. Once we fix all the things that Ingevolper messed up on the Arctic surfacing, we were going to head back out. And sure as could be, we went there, and when we got ready to deploy, went to the pre-briefs, and they were like, yeah, we never sent anybody that way because it's just too crazy. And then when the sub note came in, saying which way we're going, and I plotted out, they were like, watch this, they can do it. It was ridiculous, and it was definitely scary, but we managed to survive. The other parts I've done 25 years, right, and every single one of my tours has been kind of weird. My first sea tour should have been 5 years. It was closer to 4. When I was on the Jackson, it was 3.5 instead of 4. Connecticut was 2.5, and I never navigated the ship except for out of dry dock. It was the best ANF tour ever. But my tour on Scranton was the longest tour I ever did at 4 years. And that's because somebody wouldn't let me leave. In fact, when he checked on board, I'm pretty sure within days, his comment was, you will not transfer until I do. And whenever the ship gets underway, you'll be there. And that was a good feeling, except for when I watched the ANAV stay on the beach, getting propay, and I was doing his job, and I couldn't stay behind. No emotion there, guy. You're okay with this. I understand. And, when we came time for, initially it was an Arctic run, and he was like, you got to go with me. You're the only guy that has that experience. And then that got canceled, and I was like, yes, I can leave. And they picked up SEC ops, and without even flinching, he walked out of control and was like, hey, you're the only guy that's done SEC ops, so you're going to go with us. He just kept kind of dragging me along as long as he could. But the other thing that Chuck didn't tell you is that he's also the only time in my naval career that I've been disqualified to watch was under Chuck. And then, actually, I think it was right before you got there. But it was with the old nav that got fired. And I was disqualified, and within like 7 days I was back on the watch, but now standing in a supervisory watch instead of the junior watch. And it was just a great tour overall, right? The crew was really close-knit, and it was backed up by the COB, the XO, the chief, and the CO, to make sure that we kind of, we worked hard and we played hard. And it was really kind of like that pinnacle moment for my career where I was approaching the 10-year mark, and I wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go. And shortly after coming back from that med run, I was certified as an assistant navigator. Went to the shipyard, did that sweet run where I couldn't shower. That was disgusting. Literally, we would go 7 days without a shower, and then we'd pull in. They'd let us all off the boat to go to some pier shower facility, and then we walked back on the boat, and they handed us like 4 gallons of water and said, that's your water rations for the next 10 days. Have fun. It was so nasty. But, I wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't gotten to the Scranton and Chuck wouldn't let me leave. It's amazing how that works out. But it came down to, my last moments before I left. It was literally, same guy, Drew Palace, bless his soul. I was literally 3 days from getting off the boat. And we were getting ready to go, I think, down to we're doing SEC ops. Anyways, and literally 3 days before I was supposed to get off, Drew magically developed some medical condition, and we have to medevac him off the ship. And I was in control, and you want us to talk about fuming, right? Because I'd already extended on board, and basically I was told, hey, if you don't make this next class for instructor duty, we're going to cancel your orders, and, well, you'll figure out what you're going to do next. And so we prepped the charts. Jonesy and I worked like ridiculous to get all those things done. And of course, Drew gets off, and I'm just sitting in control stand and watch, and I'm just livid, because I knew I was about to get screwed out of my orders that I'd fought so hard for. So Chuck walks into control, and he's looking at me, and I'm just pissed. And he says, why are you so mad? And I said, because I'm about to lose my orders. Like, what do you mean, why am I mad? Drew just got medevaced, I'm not getting off the ship. And he's like, well, I told you you're getting off the boat. And I was like, yeah, but the XO and the nav already came by and talked to me, and they said I'm not. So you need to stop blowing smoke up my butt. And he literally walked away and went and got the nav and the XO and brought him to the stateroom. And about 2 minutes later, the nav walked out and said, hey, I need you to figure out a watch bill that doesn't have me on it. And Chuck walked out of control and said, so I told you, who's the captain? So, and it was shortly after I left there that I made chief and just continued on. But a lot of the experiences I had with the chiefs and with Chuck were kind of what kind of guided me as far as the leader I wanted to be, right? Aubrey will attest the fact that, I will bend over backwards. I will figure out every loophole there is when it comes to manning and detailing. I will make personal phone calls. I'll do anything I can to try to help sailors that need it. And a lot of that is due in part to the experiences I had on my longest sea tour of 4 years with Chuck. Even when I came back up here this last time, I didn't plan on staying in very long. I moved back up here, and we were taking orders for 14 months with the idea of I was going to get up here, I was going to test with Seattle Fire, and I was going to get out. And so I tested. I did pretty well, but I really couldn't see getting out on a hope and a dream. And then this guy named Troy Harrell came down to control and was like, hey, check it out, right? You guys all know? So he came down to control, and he's like, hey, I need you to pull your retirement papers, and I need you to come to Devron. And I was like, there's no way. I'm literally 4 months from retirement. I've got a year and a half left of sea duty. And And he said, don't you worry about that. Do your projects packet, and I'll take care of everything else. And I was like, okay, whatever. Called detailer, and he's like, why am I seeing this package come across my desk? If you're going to stay in, you're going to do another year and a half at sea. And I said, no harm, no foul here. Like, I was asked to do it. I'm doing it. Either I'm retiring in 4 months, or I go to shore duty and I get out from there. And I think it was maybe 2 weeks later he called me and said, hey, we were just talking about you. We've released you. You've on to projects now. And, the nice thing was when I came in and I kind of got my feel about what I want to do or who I wanted to be, what I wanted to accomplish, right? There were a couple of things that were on that list, right? I really want to go to instructor duty, my master training specialist, check. It took me forever, but after 21 years, I got my bachelor's degree, so that's a win. And doing a Devron, or a squadron tour. And that's how I culminated my career. So throughout all this, though, the craziness was that I drug my family all over the place, right? My mom, my sisters, my dad, who isn't here, have always been supportive of me, even when I was calling them, telling them that I had done something wrong and that I didn't know what the future of my career was. They just kind of listened to it. They let me vent and kind of helped guide me a little bit to make sure that I got back on the right track and would pray for me, trying to figure out where I'm going to go from here and what I'm going to do. And in the last 10 years, obviously, the kids they challenge me every day. Nothing is ever routine, and I won't say that we have a day where we actually have a plan that is executed to perfection and without flaw. I can't say enough just how important it is that they're here today and just how much of my career progress, my career accomplishments are because of them. They followed me, Mackenzie, all the kids, they followed me to San Diego. They followed me back up here. I know they got to go to Legoland and Disney and all the water parks and enjoy the beach for 3 years. But they followed me without question. When I said, hey, we're going to take orders to San Diego, Aubrey was like, okay. When we said we're going to take orders back up here, it was fine. Has it always been perfect? No. Do Mackenzie and I get into discussions sometimes? Absolutely. But I couldn't imagine a better family kid combination to kind of do this with. And even the twins, when we decided that we were going to try and end up getting pregnant with twins, we didn't know what in the world we were going to do. It sounded like a great idea on paper, and then once it was already passed, we're like, well, now how do we navigate this? And it was rough. Like, I'm not going to lie. Anybody that has 1 kid, 2 kids, whatever, the first 6 months, I don't think Aubrey and I even saw our bedroom. We just slept downstairs and we would alternate who was rocking what baby because one of them would go to sleep and the other one would wake up. And that was kind of like our routine. It was disastrous most days, but we made it somehow. And once again, large in part as far as the flexibility I had was Nick Wallace, who's not here today. He's out riding on one of our boats. But, I'd walk into work looking like death, and he would just, why are you here? You need to go home and handle things. And so even outside of my leave period, I was granted a pretty great flexibility to be home for my wife and to do some, self-preservation because it was ridiculous. And that, like I said, it goes a lot in tune or kind of tied in with my family, but also with my in-laws. Brenda and Mike have always been really helpful. Bo is the random guy that can just about do anything. And, there's been times when we've called on them to ask for help with stuff, whether it be things around the house or while I'm gone. And they don't hesitate to drop everything they're doing and support us. Even to the point of Mike literally spending every waking hour for the last, 5 days straight, finishing up this great idea of a fence that I put off for 7 years. So I can't say thank you enough, Mike, Brenda, Bo, for everything you guys have done, for all the support you've given us throughout the years, and it just means the world to me to live this close to you and to kind of have that close-knit family in this local area to kind of support us as we do things. So I have tokens of appreciation for everybody. We're going to go ahead and Dustin's going to come up and kind of help hand them out. So for Parker and Ainsley, they are literally like a light in my eye. You know, they wake me up in the morning. I never, ever, ever get to sleep in. But I wouldn't imagine my life without them. Like, they truly keep me on my toes. They challenge me each and every day, but they're just, even when they're in there and they're like, I'm wanting to melt down, somehow either Parker or Ainsley will smile, and it's over. I can't be angry anymore. So, thank you, Parker. I don't know where Ainsley ran off to, but, oh, she had to go, okay. She's got a bladder like me. So, she had to leave, but Ainsley's quite the whippersnapper, so. For Cortland, you are a huge help in everything you do. Even when it doesn't turn out perfect, the fact that you're willing to cook dinner, the fact that you're willing to help out in the kitchen and do just about anything and everything, mean the world to your mom and I. And I can't say thank you enough for, you know, the nights when I come home at 4, 5, 6 o'clock and dinner's already done. And it's all because you just were like, I'm going to throw something together. And somehow, magically, it always tastes good. With the exception of your bundt cake. That didn't turn out so well. But thank you so much for everything. You truly support your mom when I'm going on travel, when I'm going on trips, whatever the case may be. You're a huge help. For Caden and Cameron, well, you're like polar opposites in some senses, but you guys are just, you're always willing to help. You know, even whether Cameron's here or not, Caden is always asking, like, how can I help? What can I do? You know, whether it be he's outside helping in the lawn, or he's inside trying to calm the twins down, or handle the dog, or whatever craziness we can put in our life, he's always doing something to help out. And for Cameron, you know, you're here when you're here, and you help out as much as you can, and I just appreciate it. I enjoy the fact that we get to sit down and watch sports together. We always have that conversation, and I'm super happy that you're still close to us, so you can be around us as much as possible. And Mackenzie, I can't say enough how much you've helped me grow as a father, as a man. You don't always let me just be who I am, and you're more than willing to call me on my crap. And I know that I don't always accept the criticism in the moment, but it means the world to me that you're willing to stand up for yourself. You are a strong woman, and you're going to do great things. So, I thank you, personally. I made it most of the time. Trev, cry for me.
Oh, that's not fair. That's not fair, man.
And last but not least, well, not least, but for my wife, Aubrey. I know that things have not always been perfect in our house, and it's not always like the most amazing thing in the world. The trips, the last-minute travel, the rides, but you truly are. I mean, you are the rock that keeps our house going. And I don't know what I would do without you at home, knowing that even when I'm gone, you're holding down the fort. And I know it hasn't been easy, but I'm looking forward to the fact that, one, I don't have to travel anymore, and two, if I say I'm going to be home at 3:30, I'll actually be home at 3:30. And well, I can't say that because Jake will just call me anyways, but nobody should call me when I'm not at work. even got phone calls today. What the heck? And last but not least, for my mom. You know, you somehow manage to love everybody. You don't always have to like them, but you love them. You support them, you believe in them. My mom has been like my rock forever, right? You know, she protected me from my mean sisters. She put fires out when they made clubs and would let me be part of it. I mean, literally, put fires out. And it's just always been a huge support to me in every decision I've made. In every mistake I've made, for that matter, she's been supportive. And I know for a fact that I wouldn't be here speaking today if it wasn't for the mentorship, the guidance, and the support that I had growing up. So I just want to say, and I probably don't say it enough, but thank you for everything you've always done for us, for all the sacrifice you made. I mean, not to go on and digress forever, but there was a period of time when my mom worked 3 jobs to support me, Tina, and Teresa. Was barely home ever. I mean, she just worked tooth and nail to the bone, day in and day out, to provide for us. And the sacrifices she made throughout the years to make sure that we were okay and that we could go and do the school we wanted to do, we could play the sports we wanted to play, and we could go to the proms and dances or whatever else we wanted to do is, I mean, I'm biased, but it's unmatched by anybody else that I've ever met. And I just thank you so much, Mom, for everything. So I'm going to bring this to close because I'm sure I'm going way too long. Thank you all once again for being here. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, and I'll see most of you in like 10 days when I get read back in and come back to work as a civilian with a beard.
Chief Snyder will now read the watch.
The watch. Aye, mates. For 25 years, the sailor stood the watch. While some of us were in our bunks at night, this sailor stood the watch. While some of us were in school, learning our trade, this sailor stood the watch. And yes, even before some of us were born, this sailor stood the watch. As our families watched the storm clouds of war brewing on the horizons of history, this sailor stood the watch. He stood the watch for 25 years. He stood the watch so that we, our families, and our fellow countrymen could sleep soundly and safely each and every night, knowing that a sailor stood the watch. Today we are here to say, shipmate, the watch stands relieved. Relieved by those you have trained, guided, and led. Senior Chief Racey, you stand relieved. We have the watch.
This order has been passed on naval ships from early 1500s through today. Spanish, French, Dutch, English. Yes, every navy in the world has used the boatswain's call and sideboys to bring aboard or send ashore its officers and visiting dignitaries. The boatswain would pipe the side as the sideboys lay on or off the lines used to raise or lower the boarding platform. This was done so that officers and visiting dignitaries would not have to climb aboard using the rat lines that the crews used. The ship's master or captain would also extend this privilege and honor to port officials to ensure a good breath for his ship while in port. It was not uncommon for the commanding officer of a naval ship of the line to order up the jolly boat, 8 strong backs to man the oars, along with the boatswains and the sideboys to send an old shipmate ashore to his retirement home, ashore never sail on a Navy ship again. All hands on deck was passed. The crew fell into parade rest for muster. The commanding officer would make a speech telling about the retiree service, the great battles fought upon the open seas, the victories, the storms weathered, the voyages to strange and distant lands, port calls visited, that others can only dream about. He would also speak of shipmates left behind. The boatswain would stand tall. The side boys and the crew were called to attention. And then the retiree would step to the quarterdeck, saluting the commanding officer and request permission to go ashore. Permission granted, the retiree would step onto the platform, salute the flag he had served, and then the retiree would be seated in the stern seats of the jolly boat, going ashore. As the side boys lowered away the jolly boat to the boatswain's call, the ship's gunner would fire a final salute from the ship's battery. The United States Navy was the first Navy to provide side honors to its enlisted crewmen. In the early to mid 1800s, enlisted men were holding retirements for their enlisted shipmates. After the Civil War, the commanding officer would take part in these enlisted retirements to show that he and the Navy recognized the contributions made by the enlisted man. And still today, we have heave to, stop all engines, lay about smartly, drop anchor, and stand by to pay honor to one of our shipmates, a shipmate going ashore, to honor those years served, the guidance, the leadership, the expertise, and above all, the friendship that this shipmate has given the past 25 years. Bosun, post the side boys, shipmate going ashore.
Post the side boys, aye. Side boys, attention. Cover. 2. Center. Stay.
Will the guests please rise for the benediction?
Join me in prayer. Bless us, O Lord, before we go our separate ways. We, along with their families, look with pride and satisfaction upon Cole's 25 years of faithful service in support of the freedom and defense of this great nation, both in war and in peacetime. We congratulate and thank Cole. We look to you, Heavenly Father, and he and all those who serve may inspire us to likewise give heroically of ourselves for this great land of the United States of America, that you and your goodness and love have bestowed upon us. Remember, Lord, in your mercy, all who have paid the ultimate price with their lives for our freedom. Give them, we ask you, eternal refreshment, light, and peace. Bless Cole's family and every family with abundant gifts of faith, hope, and love. Amen.
I will now read the Fleet Reserve Certificate. This is to certify that Senior Chief Electronics Technician, Submarines, Coleman Racey was transferred from active duty to the Fleet Reserve on the 31st day of July after 25 years of service. This certificate is awarded as a testament of faithful and honorable service. Signed, S.G. Mack, Captain, United States Navy. Senior Chief, United States Navy, and family, departing. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Coleman and his family would like to thank all of you for sharing this occasion with them. You're cordially invited to the reception, which is being held in the Friendship Center. Thank you all. May God bless Senior Chief Racey and continue to bless the United States of the Navy.